Tonight we have the remarkable story of a man who says when it comes to Los Angeles, the CIA hasn't always played by the rules.
The agency has dealt drugs throughout this country for a long time.
Wait a minute, if you don't like what's going on here, please now.
It began to become apparent to me that guns were going one way and drugs were going another.
The CIA has issued a blanket response to all of this, denying any involvement.
My name is Mike Rupert, R-U-P-P-E-R-T. I did bring this information out 18 years ago, and I got shot at and forced out of LAPD because of it. I've been on the record for 18 years.
We got on record everywhere we could so that if I did get killed, we would know. You know, somebody would know that somebody was saying something was wrong with CIA.
We're going to talk about a lot of things tonight that are very difficult, a lot of things tonight that are very challenging, a lot of things that will test and try many of us in the months and the years to come. But we're going to have a certain approach to this, and it's the only kind of approach that I have found in 23 years that works when you're challenging a government that no longer serves the interests of the people. I'd like to start off by asking a question, like a show of hands. How many people in the room tonight believe that Lee Harvey Oswald was the lone gunman and solely responsible for the murder of John F. Kennedy? Show of hands. 2 hands, and they're both joking. How many people in the room tonight believe that the war that is now taking place and getting ready to move all over the world is solely the result of the attacks on the World Trade Center on September the 11th? Okay, all right, great. This will set the tone for what we're going to talk about tonight and what we're not going to talk about tonight. For 38 years, as of November 22nd, just a few days ago, we have had a videotape showing clearly that John F. Kennedy was shot from the front and not the back, where the Warren Commission says that Lee Harvey Oswald was up and behind to the right in the Texas School Book Depository. You look at this tape, and there is clear, convincing, incontrovertible evidence. Yet what good has it done us? What has it done to change the government? What has it done? What have we, meaning the American people, accomplished with this piece of video that shows his head moving backwards as a result of a bullet impact from the front of his head? It hasn't changed anything. I want you to bear that in mind, because I'm going to use the word "you" a lot tonight. And by you, I mean the American people. I'm talking to you as if I was talking to all 280 million people in this country. And I'm going to say some things that are going to be kind of backing you into a corner. And that is my direct intent. So some of the things we are not going to talk about tonight are speculations about the attacks on September the 11th. We are not going to talk about were there explosives in the building, were the planes piloted by remote control, any of those questions, because those are speculative questions that produce the same kind of results that we just saw on the tape. After 38 years, you can play that all you want, and it doesn't change anything. There are people who have been talking about the Oklahoma City bombing since it happened in 1995. We have videotape of U.S. military personnel machine gunning the Branch Davidians at Waco. We have proof up the galore. We're not here looking tonight for proof. We're not going to go home and have armchair discussions, because what's at stake now is our freedom. What's at stake now is our future. This is no more time to go home, and you'll see that before I'm through tonight. Now, there is another way to take on the government. There is another way to take on the lunacy of the mass media. And that is by using their own statements and their own evidence against them to prove that they are lying. Because if you're in this room tonight, you are probably already the choir. Our safety, our future, our liberty, our country, and maybe the planet depends upon us reaching out to the millions of people out there who are still waving the flag, still believing that this is a war like they're being sold on CNN. Now, I'm going to play another tape now, and I'm going to show you what happens when you confront the government with their own information head on. This is a confrontation I had with the Director of Central Intelligence, John Deutsch, at Locke High School in 1996 over the issue of the CIA bringing drugs into Los Angeles. I want you to watch his hands very carefully after I confront him.
Sir, the man in the leather
That's
jacket.
Congresswoman Juanita Millender McDonald of Compton.
I will be coming back
Hi.
over. Altitude.
I am a former Los Angeles police narcotics detective, and I work South Central Los Angeles, and I will tell you, Director Deutsch, emphatically and
And
without
just speak further
equivocation,
into the mic, sir. These mics don't seem to be...
I will tell you, Director Deutsch, as a former Los Angeles police narcotics detective, that the agency has dealt drugs throughout this country for a long time.
All right, obviously that is an answer for a lot of you. Now can you please... All right, now can you please...
I refer direct...
Wait a minute.
Director Deutsch, I will refer you to 3 specific agency operations known as Amadeus, Pegasus, and Watchtower. I have Watchtower documents heavily redacted by the agency. I was personally exposed to CIA operations and recruited by CIA personnel who attempted to recruit me in the late 70s to become involved in protecting agency drug operations in this country. I have been trying to get this out for 18 years, and I have the evidence. My question for you is very specific, sir. If, in the course of the IG's investigations and Fred Hitz's work, you come across evidence of severely criminal activity,
Let him speak into
and
the
it's
mic.
classified, will you use that classification to hide the criminal activity, or will you tell the American people the truth?
Watch his hands. Watch his hands.
All right, you want to hear the response first from Congressman Julian Dixon and then from the director. Wait a minute. From York, I'm sorry, sir. I will allow the director to speak first and then Congressman Julian Dixon.
If you have information about CIA illegal activity in drugs, you should immediately bring that information to wherever you want, but let me suggest 3 places. The Los Angeles Police Department.
Gotcha.
Please. I'm sorry, others want to hear this answer. I am sorry, others want to hear this answer.
It is your choice, the Los Angeles Police Department, the Inspector General, or office of one of your Congress persons from this.
I did that 18 years ago, sir, and I got shot at for it.
Wait a minute, sir. Wait a minute, sir.
And
Sir, you have not gotten the mic yet. You are not. But wait a minute, then don't speak out of turn.
let me say something else. If this information turns up wrongdoing, we will bring the people to justice and make them accountable.
All right, Congressman Dixon.
Thank you, sir, for coming.
Wait a minute here. I thought you did not want to be here, but now that you are here, please let us hear and listen. Thank you very much.
Sir, I want to thank you for coming. You were at the last meeting. The staff probably has the spelling of your name wrong, but
No, they didn't.
we would like to talk to you. We have been looking for a couple of days for you, and we want to we want to make sure that you contact the committee, because obviously you have some valuable information. If you want to give it to me privately, if you want to hand it to that aide where I can contact you this evening, please do it. Don't let us get away without getting a contact for you.
Thank you, sir.
Pass it up to him now so everyone can see that I got it. That would be fine.
Thank you, sir. And for the record, my name is Mike Rupert, R-U-P-P-E-R-T. I did bring this information out 18 years ago, and I got shot at and forced out of LAPD because of it. I've been on the record for 18 years nonstop, and I'll be happy to give you, Congressman, anything that I have.
I have to tell you that was probably the most fun I've ever had in my life. Although tonight may top that. If you can kill the blue on the VCR there. What happened after this was John Deutsch was guaranteed an appointment by Bill Clinton to become the next Secretary of Defense. My confrontation with John Deutsch cost him that appointment. My good friend Dick Gregory, who I just did a radio show with on Thanksgiving Day, called me up and said he said he was talking to some people in Washington, and they just chewed him up one side and down the other because he looked like a fool. No, the other is drugs, okay? We want to talk about evidence. We want to talk about proof, okay? This is a memorandum that was written February 11th, 1982, to the Honorable William J. Casey. Everybody remember Bill Casey from Iran-Contra? CIA Director, signed by Attorney General William French Smith. This was at the beginning of the Contra War, very early in the Reagan administration. And something had happened before this. There had been a series of negotiations. Now, in the CIA, the highest rung on the food chain is called an officer. If you are a case officer at CIA, you are someone who cannot be disavowed or denied. You are a man of the cloth. You are a man blessed with immunity. The agency will protect you. But underneath that on the food chain, they have career agents, contract agents, foreign agents, informants. They have proprietary companies, employees of the there's a whole category of people. Well, in 1982, because the CIA knew there was going to be a massive explosion in cocaine trafficking that they were going to control, U.S. Cocaine consumption went from roughly 80 metric tons in 1979 to 600 metric tons by 1987. Think about that for a minute. That's a lot of coke. All right? They knew that was coming. All right? So one of the things they did legally, because the agency and the government, they always find paper ways to try to cover their trail, and they think nobody will catch them. One of my favorite lines of all time, and for the first 100 of you who got here, you got a free copy of my last issue of From the Wilderness, is from Alan Dulles, who, when the Warren Commission report was released, however many volumes there were, and you read those volumes and you know that Lee Harvey Oswald didn't kill John Kennedy. And Alan Dulles said, the American people don't read. You don't read. This memorandum says, first of all, they took all the people who were not case officers and they decided to call them non-employees of the Central Intelligence Agency. There's a federal law stating that if a federal employee breaks a federal law, you have to report him. They were caught on the horns of a dilemma. So first they said, well, all these people are not employees, even though they get CIA paychecks. And then they said, in light of these provisions and in view of the fine cooperation the Drug Enforcement Administration has received from CIA, no formal requirement regarding the reporting of narcotics violations has been included in these procedures. That's black and white evidence of a conspiracy. The Attorney General of the United States just told the CIA director he no longer had to report it when anybody other than a case officer was dealing drugs. And I am a very poor example. 23 years. I've been shot at twice. I've been made homeless. I've been forced into bankruptcy. I was told that if I ever had children, they'd be killed. I was denied employment. I was arrested on phony charges. I've had all of that in 23 years, and yet my sacrifice pales by comparison to some brave men I know. And I'll mention two out of dozens that I know. One is Celerino Castillo, a DEA agent who lives in McAllen, Texas, in poverty, who watched the CIA loading planes full of cocaine at Ilopango Airfield in El Salvador, who confronted Vice President George Bush then, and who was told to leave it alone. It's a White House operation. The DEA forced him out and almost killed him like Serpico. And the other is the Marine colonel by the name of Jim Sabo, who caught those CIA C-130s flying cocaine onto his base at El Toro Marine Air Station and was murdered because of it. People like us, and I'm just one of many, have been trying to tell people like you that unless you face this now and pay the price, this is what the end result is going to be, and it's only going to get worse. Catherine Austin Fitts has a great saying, if we can face it, God can fix it. But it can't happen until we face it. Now let me show you what's on the drawing boards. This is being debated right now. Model State Emergency Health Powers Act as of October 23rd. This goes in conjunction with the 300 million doses of smallpox vaccine that are being ordered. This is an act that will give state and local governments the right to seal off neighborhoods, herd people into stadiums, close down all transportation, water, and communications, seal off everything, suspend the Constitution, seize property, and suspend the writ of habeas corpus. All justified under a supposed threat of massive biological warfare. This is being debated right now. The criminality of this regime is out of the closet. I noticed it was out of the closet in May when Citibank bought Banamex. They don't care anymore. They're arrogant. But I got news for you. These guys, and especially George W. Bush, play in a rigged game. They've always played in a rigged game. And those who play in a rigged game get stupid. Because they don't have to perform. Their arrogance gets them. Now, if you have any lingering doubts, and you can go to my website and read all of these documents of Operation Northwoods. These are declassified top secret documents from 1962 showing that the Joint Chiefs of Staff had planned to shoot down 2 American airliners and blame it on Fidel Castro for the purpose of getting a war with Cuba. You don't have to believe me. Go read the declassified documents yourself. They don't care about us. Okay? They're all on the website. The victorious warlord set to open opium floodgates. The Northern Alliance is planting opium poppies hand over fist, and the CIA will control that drug trade and control the money to keep the bubble on Wall Street afloat. I want to leave you with a couple of thoughts. I may have scared you, and I love it when people come up to me and say, Mike, what am I supposed to do? And I know that in your head you're saying, you don't want me to tell you what you're supposed to do, because what you want me to tell you is something that'll let you go home, drink a beer, watch your television set, and manage your 401k plan. Okay? Yeah, you can write. And I got to tell you, From the Wilderness, my newsletter has doubled in size since September the 11th. And you know what I'm doing with the money? I'm hiring reporters and I'm writing more stories. One thing you can do... One thing you can do is vote with your money. Stop giving money to people who lie to you. Okay? Now, I'll give you a little word of inspiration. I'll give you, this is a comment on the Patriot Act. It says, our forefathers would think it's time for a revolution. This is why they revolted in the first place. They revolted against much milder oppression. And who said it? A Republican Congressman, Ron Paul of Texas.
To vote against the Patriot Act was a very easy vote for me. To me, it was a clear violation of the civil liberties of all Americans. It was called Patriot Act because they didn't want anybody to vote against it, claiming that if you didn't vote for it, you weren't a patriotic American citizen. I think it was probably the opposite way. I think those who voted for it voted for a bill that undermined the Fourth Amendment, the whole principles of individual freedom and liberty in this country. So it was very easy for me to oppose a bill that would just open up Pandora's box with search warrants and the whole ability to wiretap and listen to all our communications, whether they were on the internet, and check on websites, the whole works. It was very easy for me to vote against that bill.
And there are other actions taken by the administration, including military tribunals and Attorney General Ashcroft's announcement that he was going to wiretap attorney-client conversations. How do those make you react?
I guess there are two there. I don't like what he's doing, but the other part is how did we get to this point in our history where our administration, our presidents, and our attorney generals do this by fiat? Just come up and declare, well, there's going to be new military tribunals set up, or we're going to wiretap communications between the accused and their lawyers, and they didn't even confer with the Congress. So I would say that's very bad. Of course, there's the slippery slope there. They say, well, we're only going to do this with the terrorists. Well, how do we know who the terrorists are? They haven't had a trial. So the whole thing is just outlandish for a country that pretends to protect the rights of the accused, and we challenge other countries like Peru in recent years for setting up these type of tribunals. So I think that moving in this direction is a serious challenge to the whole principles of the 10 Amendments and the Constitution.
For all the FBI agents in the audience, a revolution can be anything, but I will tell you this, that a revolution, according to Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, Monroe, and all of the founding fathers, is my divine right. One of the most offensive statements I have heard since September the 11th was Pennsylvania Governor Tom Ridge, when he was sworn in. And he said, civil liberties are one of the most precious gifts that we give our citizens. I got news for you, Governor Ridge. These are inalienable rights. You don't give nothing to me, we give them to you. During the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln suspended the writ of habeas corpus, and it led to one of the most powerful and most important trials that ever reached the Supreme Court of the United States. The case was Ex parte Milligan. And this is what they had to say. They said, the Constitution of the United States is a law for rulers and people equally in war and in peace, and covers with the shield of its protection all classes of men at all times and under all circumstances. No doctrine involving more pernicious consequences was ever invented by the wit of man than that any of its provisions can be suspended during any of the great exigencies of government. That was when we had a Supreme Court. Now, I want you to bear in mind, you may think that the system of government is still mildly working here. That, well, we had a law and you know what, so Congress is working, but, you know, Congress is totally subdued. They're rolled over. They're not fighting, so you think it's the court. But bear in mind that the current Supreme Court is the one that illegally gave George W. Bush the election victory. And when I say illegally, I mean it was a butchery in the major media, because the Florida law said the clear intent of the voter. And what happened was the Supreme Court stopped the counting when there were thousands of ballots left uncounted that would have shown the clear intent of the voter, and said, we're going to make a one-case exception here, and we're going to say that we stopped the count, and we're going to just recount the votes that we have and ignore the votes where we could still determine the clear intent of the voter. That was an illegal decision. So where do you go after that?
The first most important thing that the American people should remember is how George Bush came to the White House. 1, through fraud, and 2, through buying the election. The most money ever spent in the history of the United States for this office. That's a crime, and that's a shame.
All right, we are living, get this, in an empire. Bill Sapphire said this about George W. Bush. He said, on what legal meat does this our Caesar feed? Bill Sapphire said that. Okay? And it is an empire. Now, I want to go all the way back, and I want to take you back before I shut up here and leave you with one of my favorite quotes of all time. The foundation of all mental illness is the avoidance of legitimate suffering. And the country is mentally ill. It'll wake up sooner or later. I don't know when. I'm not God. I don't know where this is going. I know that my job is to teach. My job is to give you information. And my job is to clarify for you what's at stake here.
Let's look at the fact that, and this is the most important point, it appears to me that the American people might have a criminal syndicate running their government.
This will be especially important if we are to consider changing the structure of the intelligence community, and that is the challenge of...
What's at stake here is your liberty. This is a criminal administration. It will not stop. It cannot turn back. President Bush broke the Presidential Records Act of 1978 by refusing to release the Ronald Reagan papers. Arbitrarily broke the law. John Ashcroft broke the law by ordering wiretaps of attorney-client conversations in terrorist cases. The Supreme Court doesn't exist. They're grabbing for the power right now, and you better rest assured, as sure as I'm standing here tonight, that the war that's supposed to be taking place against terrorism is also a war against you. Thank you very much.